Here's a question. My games are a bit weird. So why? Sometimes when I talk to people, I can kind of see this question in their eyes, but they're too nice to ask it. And sometimes I'll complain about my career to people if I'm having money troubles or, whatever. And they'll be like, have you tried making more normal things? And this has happened a few times, and it made me think, like, oh, yeah, like why what makes me pick a project that a majority of people will find weird, right? And I made a video about why I make games in the first place. So that should actually kind of answer the question, at least half of it anyway. And the weirdness of it all is the other part, where I just think they're neat, like weird games. I feel like they express things that only games can express. So this is my regular example for like a really good game is God of War Ragnarok, and it's a really good game, and you play it and you feel like a sad dad or whatever you're supposed to feel like. And it's incredibly immersive, and it's just takes you to places, and it's a lot of fun to play, and you feel for these characters, and they're like perfectly voice acted and mo-capped, and the graphics are amazing, and you're just in that world, right? And if you look at that game and be like, oh, I'm gonna also make a game, and it's gonna be like God of War, and then you start making it, and you just see the awkwardness and the challenge of it all, of like making a truly immersive piece of game piece of work, piece of game. um is the because the player agency is making things so awkward and weird all of the time. Like players are just doing stuff that the character wouldn't do, and then as the game designer, are you supposed to be like, well, you're playing it wrong? And the fact of the matter is, as a game designer, you cannot think like that. You cannot think that the players are playing it wrong. They will decide what the character is and what they would do, because they're in control of the character. There's this Jason Rohrer idea of the possibility space of a game should only involve the things that empower the message of the game. So you should not be able to do anything in the game that would hurt the message, which is a cool idea, but it's also quite limiting, right? So you start playing with a different possibility space, and you just quickly find out that if you don't obsess over what the player can do and how that might hurt the meaning of the game, then you're just able to have more fun with it. That's how you get like goat simulators and stuff, I suppose. It's like just having a possibility space that is extremely silly and letting people do silly things. But what I was trying to say is, if you take God of War as the ideal game, for me as a game designer, that's not really the game that I want to make, even though that's a better game than I could ever make, if that makes sense. Here's the explanation of that. There's this idea of like, if you make something that everybody likes, then it's probably not saying something very, probably doesn't have strong opinions, probably is a very lukewarm type of thing, which I don't know how true that is. But whenever I play a game that gets 7 out of 10, I find that game much more memorable than a 9 out of 10 video game. And it makes me experience something much more interesting, and it inspires me more than the 9 out of 10s. And that is the thing, that when you get inspired by those weirder stuff, you also feel more motivation to work on weirder stuff. And then there's the whole angle of you're trying to express yourself through these things, and all of these things that you want to express are weird and awkward in the first place. And the other thing is, like, when it comes to production quality, you cannot just make something that looks as good as a movie or something. So you're trying to find these shortcuts and interesting visual effects that will kind of look expensive even though it's cheap. You'll look into like how to make your game feel different, because there's so many games out there, and you want to be able to kind of separate yourself somehow. And all of these things end up with you just making something that some people will look at and be like, what the hell is that? I don't even know where to start thinking about that. Like, so because most people are not into video games, especially not as into them as I am. There's a language of video games. There's like, you're supposed to tutorialize every game you make, but then also most of your players already know how to play your game. Like, in every game you play, they'll be like, oh, you press square to attack or whatever, and then you're like, yeah, I already pressed square like 5 times and I already learned it, because that's exactly at the button in this other game that I already used, and I already have ideas about your combo system, and you probably have crafting because that was also in this other game. And I also just watched your trailer. I also watched a review that told me that the game is good in the first half but kind of drops the ball in the second half. Like, players have all of these ideas already, but then you also have to design your game for like a blind player who doesn't know anything about the game. So there's all sorts of awkwardness of like overtelling things, undertelling things. What do you tell? Sometimes you just want to hide things. And when you hide things, it's nicer if they find it by themselves when you don't tell them. But then it also sucks when you hide things and no one finds them. so, so you want to leave breadcrumbs everywhere so that they find it, and then they're like, oh, wow, I can't believe I found that. And it's like, yes, they found it. It's really awkward. The whole game design is really fun, but also when you're trying to, express yourself and put honest work out there, it can be interesting. There's, I feel like most of our relationships these days are parasocial. Like, if you're watching this video, this is a parasocial relationship, right? Because I don't know who you are. I don't know who is watching, right? And so what I'm trying to say is, if you're watching YouTubers, if you're watching Twitch streamers, that's a one-sided relationship where you're or if you're listening to podcasts while you're washing the dishes, you feel like you're talking to a friend or something, but that's digital. They're not talking to you. So I feel like games are also quite parasocial in that you're having a conversation with the game designer. It's less parasocial because your actions matter, right? You're controlling a character or you're making decisions that affect what the program is giving you. Like, you might play the game in a way that finds the happy ending or the bad ending, and this would be a decision that game designer has already made, but then that would be a conversation with the game designer. All I'm trying to say is, this is why I make weird games. Thanks for watching.